Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Reliability Gang podcast. I have a very special person with me today. I would like to introduce Jay Hack. How you keeping, Jay?
I'm keeping well. It's great to be here. It's great to have you at Accelerate 2026. And this is just a fantastic conference. And I loved sitting down with people like you who are out on the front lines and leading companies and leading people, moving maintenance and reliability forward.
What an event it's been this year. Honestly, I've enjoyed it so much. Every time I come in, I get invited, meet so many people network, and so many engineering managers and people that obviously adopting the eMaint software or other products and seeing everything like that. And I got to say, like, Jay brings an incredible energy to this as well. So, like, really honored to have you on here to have a chat about some of the new features as well that we've seen. So Jay's been kind of giving me a little bit of an insight to some of the cool features. And one thing we did do on Thought Leadership Day was trying to bridge generational gaps, trying to see how we can use technology to also make it easier for maybe different generations and what we've got. Jay was so excited the other day because he was like, Will, I wanted to pick your brains. I've got some new features. What do you think? Because I think we have some good convos about kind of how we can use tech to influence what we're doing. I want you to talk about some of the new features that we've got with eMaint and what you've got. And how does that have an impact with general people that come in here?
Absolutely. And I'll start off with a little bit about what I shared in my keynote. One of the key insights we've looked over the past few years is generative AI and a lot of these technology features. I mean, it's like a rocket ship. You know,
it's so fast, isn't it?
You know, I shared my personal story about how I use ChatGPT for my health goals. You know, I'm like tracking my sleep on my Apple Watch. I got my strength training goals and my food and, you know, lab reports. You know, you upload it into ChatGPT and it'll say, you're not sleeping enough, you need to eat better. And like, you can really accomplish some stuff. But if you look at how we do this in industry and professional corporations with maintenance reliability, we're not there yet. And so this was one of our insights kind of coming out of Accelerate last year. So we said that we're going to figure out, and we set the goal is by Accelerate 2026, we will have 3 new features launched. We ended up with 4, which is really cool.
Well, you're above the target then.
But we said we're going to find 3 solid use cases. And so how we thought about this, Will, is we didn't just want technology for technology's sake. We wanted 3 practical applications. And so here's what we came up with. First one we came up with was talking to your data. This is the most obvious one. And there are other companies doing this, but we thought we'll tell you about our little twist on it. But we want to be able to actually ask for information in the system of record with eMaint and get back actual results.
Okay, wow.
So think about this, and this is the classic example. When I first tested this maybe 6 or 8 months ago, I asked, how many forklifts do we have in all of our facilities? And we had a mock eMaint account. It'll tell you what kind of batteries are we using? How often do the batteries need to be changed? And it's just spitting back information where before you had to go through and triangulate reports, and you had to be a primary user of the system that's working in eMaint daily in some cases, or at least familiar with the reporting structure. Now, you may be the casual user. So we've expanded the people that can access the eMaint database for information. Super cool.
That is so handy, because I think one thing that I've found in my experience with CMMS, and we at Maintain do a lot of optimization, and we kind of look for the gaps and see how they can work across lots of different CMMS systems. And we've experienced lots across the past, to be honest. And I think one thing about industry, one challenge is that if they've been using it for a long period of time, there's a lot of fear of changing and, we've done all of this work, how are we going to lose anything? Or you've got embedded purchasing systems that are very difficult to move away from different things and stuff like that. But what I do see a lot of is a lot of people struggle to use a system for basic things. And I think that feature there is very valuable in the sense that anyone can find information by voice in it. Is it a voice recognition?
So that's a separate feature. We'll get to that.
Okay. I'm jumping ahead of me.
You're jumping ahead of me.
We're going to jump ahead. So
this one, just think of ChatGPT,
yeah,
except you're querying your system of record within eMaint. You're querying the database.
So you basically ask it, I want to see this. It will generate everything from it, and it will give you what you need.
And so here's the important thing. Really easy to set that up. What's really, really harder than actually programming the AI is thinking through all the implications.
Okay, I see.
And so we've done this in a very, very safe manner, in a professional manner for our customers. And so I'll give you a few examples. The first time we did this in the mock environment, facility A can see all facility B's information, and it gets mixed together. And you're like, okay, that's probably not great. Or, maybe there's some proprietary information that you don't want the average person. You need some roles and responsibility.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Or maybe, we had a write feature, which, it's writing something to the database and maybe it's going to the other plan. So we went through and we really were thoughtful And we partition this in a way where we think we nailed it in terms of having someone be able to consume information where they're supposed to and access what they're supposed to, and actually really think through this. So everyone should feel really good about this. It'll be in beta still, access for all eMaint customers in X5 now for the next month or two, and then it'll be fully in the production environment.
Wow.
But the second order effects, I'm going to make a prediction in the industrial space, that will be an increasing issue as people kind of, for probably the next year or two, as people kind of work to think through all the implications. It's massive.
Wow, yeah, I can see that being huge. And I think with software in general, usually sometimes the smallest updates have the biggest impact, but you've got to really think your way through them problem solving things. And how do you say, well, if I can solve a small problem, how's that able to solve a bigger problem across the whole organization? Which I really love that feature for that. That definitely, for me, if I was using that as a maintenance manager, I'd find lots of value within that as well. So that's amazing. So what's the other feature today?
So let's talk about our build feature.
Yeah.
It's an SOP generation. So this is really cool. If you think about how many OEM manuals there are across the world.
You see them on the shelf, don't you, in the sides? You walk in, there's a whole massive bookshelf of manuals, and I get it.
And what ends up happening is, one of our observation is, let's say you have a motor or a pump, you'll upload the procedures you need into your CMMS, but then there's a procedure that's in the manual that you didn't, and then 5 years later you need it, you have to go back. So this feature is really cool because it allows you to do this in an automated fashion. You take manual, upload the PDF, it'll scan, or any type of, maybe it's a non-OEM manual and it's just a general maintenance thing. It'll scan that PDF document and generate the SOPs that you need for work orders.
Wow.
Okay. And it's
automatically, so you put the manual in, it'll feed.
It'll say, we found these 30 different things in the manual.
This is what we need to do.
And these are the 4 different motors it applies to. And it'll automatically generate steps in there. And then the maintenance, we do want a human in the loop because it is AI. So let's say it's 80 or 90% correct. And maybe in your facility, you want to have things done a little bit different way to a higher standard, or maybe extend an interval. All that's okay. The human is in the loop that's approving these.
Of course, yeah.
And maintain control over your maintenance procedures. But talk about time savings.
Wow, yeah, that's huge. That's huge. I mean, I think to be able to, and again, this is another problem in the industry, right? This is why I quite like these solutions, because they are kind of solving frontline issues that we've got. When we do PM optimization as well, and we're looking at these things, we are looking through manuals and all the rest of it, but where is it going? How is it actually being generated within the system? And I think information and data, there's a lot of things that could probably do that, but how is centralized in the same system is the important part, really, isn't it? If you can manage that workflow and gradually start adding all of these manuals in, and also look what you're doing with your database. You're actually now forcing yourself to put all the information in one place rather than being on the shelf.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, but not only PMs, if you have something that's not a PM and it's in the maintenance book, that's now in your procedure.
Yeah.
So let's say it's
SOPs and just the way that,
just the way it's done. So you can get everything in there. That's really, really powerful and really time savings.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's where the industry needs to improve. I do feel like we don't have enough SOPs. There's not a lot of an alignment with, say, engineer A and engineer B doing the same jobs. How do you know and how can you measure that they're doing the same thing and it's consistent? Because that's what maintenance is, right? It's consistency, and it's making sure that you can continue to do the same process no matter who it is, and you still get the same results, which can be difficult to do depending on who's doing this stuff, right? So
So let's go to our third feature. This is the feature you seem most excited about. So I'm like firing up here. This is the talk feature. So in natural language, you can use your voice to generate a work order. And so let's say I'm walking through the facility, I got my mobile phone out, I see something that needs to happen. I can pull up my phone and just talk into it and be like, hey, I'm walking through the facility at point ABC. I noticed that this pump, it's making a noise, and this is what's happening. Whatever my natural language is, it will parse out what that is and put it into the exact fields of the work order.
Wow. So it's okay. Just let me just get this straight. Say I'm
work order request. So,
So I'm walking around site. I see a pump leaking.
Yeah.
I'm like, right, okay. I named the asset. This is where the asset is. Here's the location. Here's where it's leaking. It will transcribe that, and it will put it in where it is with that asset within
the work order
the work order request. Oh, okay, I see. Amazing.
And
wow.
so what it is a shortcut. People, instead of pump broken or pump making noise,
or instead of someone seeing it, saying I need to report that, getting back and completely forgetting. Because let's be honest, I'll be honest with you, within maintenance, this happens all the time. I don't really think that engineers want to not put this stuff in the system. That's of course they don't. But what happens is complacency kicks in. And I think this is where technology can help the general engineer. If it's easier, you've got to make it so easy for the guys to do something. So when they do it, it becomes more habitual. But like most CMS systems that we're dealing with nowadays, I know some have smart apps and you can even put it in, but to even be able to voice note in, it's just so much easier. And I think that is quite revolutionary in the sense that the easier you make it, the more information you get.
And the more information you get, the better your maintenance is.
100%.
The more data you have, the more records you have. So what the desired intention is lower the barriers of entry for someone creating work order requests, and then increasing the fidelity of what that work order request actually has. So you have more information.
But that's what I think it is, because I think when you write down what you see in your brain, essentially, to what you write is very different. Do you know what I mean? And how you explain things. Because I think some people, when they write things, struggle to explain what they think, if that makes sense. Whereas if we're saying it, I feel like you're going to get more information there. And if you do that across all of your technicians, and say if you've got 5 or 6 technicians across the site, or even operators, you know, operators are the guys that are next to the machine, right? They're the ones hearing it, feeding or whatever. Given that feature to them guys is going to significantly improve the whole process. So
that's what we're hoping. So we beta tested ahead of launch with about 12 or so customers, and I think we're going to see a lot is.
What was the feedback? Was the feedback good? Is that what you kind of,
Feedback is good. I think what we need to see is how is it used in the wild. Probably had 24 people play around with this, but we can extrapolate this from 20 texts to 2,000 texts.
Yeah, how does that scale?
How does that scale? What are we finding? Are we finding maybe the microphone isn't capturing in a noisy environment, or we need to adjust things? But look, we can do that. And so that's one of the things that's really cool about software, right? Is you can iterate and you can make corrections.
Yeah, improve it,
And we can find out, and we don't have to like bring things back in. We can just push it out.
And I think that's what, this is about sometimes. These features don't seem like, oh my God, this is like rockets, but it's the implementation and the ability to be able to make sure that, because like systems can be built to work, right? But they're only as good as the users and what we do to be able to implement them. Do you know what I mean? So making it easier to use, I think generally is going to improve overall output of it all. And it's going to allow plants to be able to get on top where they keep their central information, really. Do you know what I mean? Because that is the brain box of their whole operation, really. It's such an important part. And many sites we see don't really utilize it to the full potential. So you're missing out there on efficiencies and effectiveness through the maintenance practices. So yeah, I love them personally. Like I think I see a lot of value in them, and I'm hoping that you guys see your customers, and hopefully you get the feedback, and hopefully you get the value coming back. And it'll take again. It takes a while for these things to happen and go through, but there's definitely some long-term value there.
You ready for our feature number 4?
Is this? Oh, I don't think I've heard this one. So this is going to be new news to me.
This is the Learn feature. This is a derivative of the AI Assist, which is the Talk to Your Data feature. So when we were testing this is one we hadn't planned, but it came up in testing, and this was like, quite candidly, it's the easiest of the 4 to do, and people were most excited about it. And so you can't predict these things. And I was just, I'll tell you, this is real. I was on my way walking to this podcast, and literally one of my customers stopped me, and they were talking about, I have a plan in Japan, Germany, and the US, and the translations between these are really hard. And we designed a tool where when you have document data repositories, you can ask for information and it will scan through the manual, search for that, parse out what you're looking for, and then translate it into the language that you need.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah.
And so this is such a simple thing with the AI technology, but such the most powerful thing. And okay, like it's 90% correct or 95% correct, but for most applications,
it's going to work. Yeah,
it's going to work, and it's going to give you enough insight to know what you need. And so what we're seeing is, and you probably realize this with your customers, is we're seeing more global rollouts of eMaint across countries and cultures. We're seeing a desire to standardize and have more digital transformation. And one of the key insights that we have is this is hard with language and cultural barriers.
Yeah.
No, and so this feature is designed to help address and alleviate some of those concerns.
I can see that being really valuable even for maybe some of our customers as well, because we're doing a lot more work in Europe now. And in Europe, it's a big place. I mean, not compared to the US, but you've got lots of countries within Europe, and you can travel across borders, and there's different language barriers between them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do as well as a function in some of these customers is start to standardize and align a lot of the SOPs, the standards, the practice. We need that aligned right across all of the plants. But what is difficult sometimes is the language barrier. So the principles are the same in terms of what we're trying to teach them in terms of reliability practice, but how do we get around the language barriers and stuff like that, which is, this here seems like a great solution to some of that. And, some of them things of how do we make sure we can communicate in the same practice of reliability, but across different countries, which I could imagine we're starting to find it a bit challenging because we're now like, oh, okay, they do speak English, but they need these manuals in German. Do you know what I mean? So we're like, our normal content doesn't like, we have to, change a few around and all the rest of it. So, I get it. I see the value in that.
And just for you, Will, I can give you a preview of some of the things that we're thinking about. These are not new features or anything on our roadmap, but there's things that we're thinking about that are really cool and exciting. You interested?
Come on, give it to me. Let's.
So think about this. With work order history, let's take your company in the reliability gang. You have how many employees now?
10 guys work with.
So let's flip this over and let's say it was in a facility and you knew every work order every one of your people were working on. And so you can make assumptions saying, oh, well, crane ain't available today and I need to have a vibration job and it's really hard. It's a
technical job. Yeah,
it's a technical job. And like I have one of my other employees available. You could ask the AI potentially, hey, this person has done all these type of work orders. You could see every work order that employee's done. Do you think he could do this job?
Okay, that's very, okay, yeah.
And it would be like, hey, look, he probably doesn't have the right experience. He may need to be able to, he may need some more, or absolutely, he's done all these and we think he can do it based off this fact pattern. We've seen these people be successful. So,
wow,
so there's some competency things that we're looking at. And maybe, I don't know, I'm going to say 5 years in the future, maybe a technician has a portable record where they now have all record of every job they've ever done. So now you have a different credential. I mean, the possibilities here are quite endless.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And super exciting. And I want to be clear. This is something that we're thinking about.
Yeah.
We haven't quite figured out what the future looks like, but this is coming where we will know so much more information about asset types, maintenance professionals, and how the intersections are than we ever have in the past. You can ask questions of, I got a vibration tech. How long will it take him to become a certified person in ultrasound based off of this experience? And you'll have a prediction of how fast he could learn.
That's pretty cool. What I love about that is as well, I think, again, businesses like ours is quite small, but if you was looking at big organizations that we deal with, competencies is a problem. Like you've got guys there that may be on the same level, but you got to look at some of the jobs that are done in a plant. They can be so vast, they're not all the same thing. When it comes down to what we're doing, vibration analysis, okay, there's a lot of things we do, but say for example, you've got guys in the plant and this, they need to be able to fix an electrical problem and you've got electricians and you've got your electrical team. There's still abilities within that electrical team that you might have an engineer not quite capable enough to do some of them jobs because of their experience, not just based on their qualification. So I think competencies and stuff like that would be huge.
So there's a lot of interest here. They might say, yeah, you could learn how to do that job in a week. Jay, man, you're gonna, I might take me a year. This is real. But
the idea and the premise is very good, and I think this is why I like speaking with you, Jay, because you're always thinking about how to solve the problems. Do you know what I mean? And I think as more of a problem solving kind of thought process, it's almost like a philosophy, isn't it? We've got these systems, we know that they exist, but what really splits the margin, what really makes the difference is how do we approach the problems and how do we actually say on a ground level, how can I help you? How can I help the technician there that's fed up with old CMMS or fed up, doesn't use it or doesn't believe in it? How do we inspire them guys to get on board? And a lot of these things are designed for that kind of front force workforce to work more effectively, and that's where the buy-in needs to be. These guys need to use it because if they don't, the whole system falls on itself.
And we talked a little bit about before the podcast started about the generational gap. I mean, like young people want to use technology. They don't want to use something that's with like complex transactional codes. They want to use something that's easy. I joke. You saw me tag you in a post about my 14-year-old daughter. We're trying to get her excited to be a part of the reliability game.
Oh, it was brilliant, great place.
Her usage of technology, it's like fantastic. She's learning in school the same program eMaint uses to do their wireframes.
It's crazy, right? And you think of this generation and how they're using tech now. You think of what they can be doing in the next 10 years, 15 years.
She will have an expectation if she's working in this industry that those tools are available.
Yeah, it is just a norm for her, right?
It's a norm. And so like if it doesn't have it, it's gonna be like, man, that stinks. So we got to be really on the forefront of trying to do this and trying to make it, we're only as good as customer adoption.
Yeah.
And so really being thoughtful. And I think these features kind of help us along that adoption curve.
Yeah, and it kind of bridges the gap as well between the older generations, because, you know, they have all the knowledge, right? And they've got this experience, and we've got this new generation coming in that will adopt tech quite easy. And if we can use some of the things that you're doing here to almost bridge that gap a little bit, you know, you've got collaboration there, and you've got the knowledge that is potentially going to be lost very soon, going into, you know, a younger generation as well that are able to use the technology. And if you can marry the two together, I think that is a recipe for success. That leads me to my last question, Jay.
Okay.
It's been a great podcast. This is kind of a bit of a closing thought. We know technology is moving fast. It's rapid. You know, you spoke about your daughter using all of these codes and programs. You've got kids programming code now and doing all of this crazy stuff. Technology is moving, and I don't think we can stop it. It is kind of on its own train. But the culture part of what we're trying to do and align with is very slow, and trying to get people to use some of these systems and know the whys can be a little bit elongated. How do we speed up the process of really getting people to understand and align that technology gap to the culture gap that we're finding really difficult with some customers? Some customers better than some, but you know, you've got customers wanting to put AI and everything. They haven't even really sorted their CMMS out at all, and all these things.
You know, so there's a couple things. This is a leadership question.
Yeah.
And there's a few things here I'm really hopeful on. One is information becomes more centralized, and IT systems like eMaint become more deployed at senior levels in the organization. Like digital transformation officer, that title didn't really exist 15 years ago. Now that's a
thing.
Primary stakeholder here.
Yeah.
So the conversations have become elevated, the awareness becomes elevated, the data becomes more consolidated and visible, the impact of not doing this becomes more visible. It gets more senior leader attention. That drives a culture change. And if you look at this, if you look at the attendees just at our conference, you know, go back 15 years ago, today we have directors and VPs of maintenance that attend. Like, that was not as common. That's why we started Thought Leadership Day, is to have programming for both users of the system, but also directors and VPs that administer the system as well, and think about what they're doing in their organization and decisions. That's a fantastic trend that plays in this favor. I think also as organizations become more lean, you know, the leadership and the relationships become more important. Employees have a choice of where they work.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and they're going to want to choose somewhere.
And they're going to want to choose
a good culture, right? Yeah.
They're going to want to choose to be in a good culture. And so this will force companies to adapt. And so I think those two trends play very much in favor of some of those cultural shifts.
No, that's a great
idea. And having people like you in the industry also, that's a little bit exciting, starting new companies. I'm very hopeful for the future.
Yeah, so am I. And you know what? I love that point that you've raised in terms of, you know, is the company got a good culture? Because you need to attract the talent as well, right, Jay? You can't have a culture that doesn't look for the future, doesn't look for the visions, because people are not going to align with that now, and especially with the new generation. They want to see progress, don't they? They want to see that actually adding value to the progress. And if you're not adopting that culture, you have to be forced to. So yeah, that's a really good point.
And I just want to thank you it's a pleasure as always.
Honestly.
It's been, I guess, last time I saw you was at Main Tech, but I always like catching up, and I always like hearing what's going on with the reliability gang.
Well, again, always a pleasure, Jay. And you always bring a real good energy, a good vibe. And I just could interview you all day if we could. Like, I don't got enough time to keep going. But honestly, thank you so much for your time. And I really appreciate you coming on the Reliability Gang podcast.
All right. Thank you.
Take care, Jay.